Welcome back to the Nassman Hockey Podcast. Happy to be here after a little break. And Brett, unfortunately, not a lot has changed off the air. We chatted about the games really quickly. Saturday night seemed to be working for the Islanders. Outside of that, it's business as usual. You rattled off a bunch of those games. I don't know if you want to do that again. Like blown leads or all this kind of stuff. It like in a row. I don't know if it contextualized it. It did something for me. I don't know if it will for the listeners.
We played since we last spoke. They played 7 games. They went 2-3-2 in those 7 games. But the picture's kind of uglier than that 2-3-2, which isn't even that pretty to look at anyway. It's actually a little uglier than that. We have 2-1 shootout loss to Flames, blown lead. 2-1 loss to the Red Wings, blown lead. 3-1 win versus the Blues on a Saturday night. That's nice. 4-2 loss to the Red Wings, blown lead. 6-3 loss to the Bruins, blown lead. 5-4 overtime loss to the Caps, blown lead. 3-0 winning against the Sabres, shutout. That's nice. Happy to see that for Sorokin at least. But yeah, that's 7 games. What did I just say? 5 blown leads?
Yeah.
It's the same conversation. We've had this conversation 3 podcasts in a row. So we don't even need to delve into each game unless you want to, but it's just the same story with this team.
Is it exactly the same every game? Because I feel like there must be some little differences, and I'm sure like it's the power play in this game, or it's a broken stick in that game, or it's a failed clear in this one. I don't know if that makes it easier or harder to swallow, that it's not exactly the same, but the results wind up being, game after game, kind of this cookie cutter thing.
I guess some of them are just so hard to swallow. Like these Red Wing games specifically, like the Red Wings just aren't that good of a team, and like their goalie is not that good. Like I think,
Alex Lyon.
Yeah, Lyon. I was like, Lyon is not that good of a goalie, and he's goalied us, air quotes on that, because 3 games now. It's like you need to score. We have Sorokin in the net. Sorokin, like
you need goal support.
Yeah, like he's not letting up 3 or 4 goals a game. He's letting up 2 goals, like, or most games. Of course, there are games where he's going to let up more, but in general, he's doing fine. So it's like, give him the goal support. It's infuriating to just not be able to score goals, and it's annoying because like the first podcast we did this season, I just went through my wish list of or not my wish list, what I'm expecting from players, and we're just not getting enough goals from some of the players. Like it's great that Palmieri is doing nice for us with goles, and Lee's probably ahead of what we expected. But overall, we're just not scoring enough goals.
Shape. Yeah. I mean, you have essentially one line that's participating in the offensive zone. Everyone else, through 2 periods anyway, is at least suppressing offense from the other team. And I don't know. I don't want to say that the defense looks good. Like in our own zone play, the Islanders' zone play looks good in their own end, but at least Sorokin and Varlamov are seeing the puck. Varlamov, who is day-to-day, by the way, and they called up Hodenberg on emergency recall.
They did, but he didn't even travel with the team to Montreal.
Yeah, it's a paper transaction at best.
Yeah, it was. They needed him for practice. Varlamov, whatever issue he had, is not a real issue.
So yeah, I mean, it's through 2 periods anyway, and then it's a very really similar story about the PK, or I tweeted the other day, forget during which game. It feels like it's the yips. I mean, and those are we'll get a little bit of that later, but it seems like it's all in their head.
It definitely is in their head. Like it's the NHL. So like these players, even as annoyed as we get at them, and like we talk about how some of them stink or whatever, it's the NHL. Even a bad team does not blow this many leads. So it's definitely mental. It's still infuriating, and I still feel like Charlie Brown kicking a football that like Lucy's holding, because you watch these games and through 2 periods, you really are like, hey, they're not looking too bad tonight. Like, but then even though they're not looking too bad, when they only have that 1 goal lead going into third, which they consistently are having. They're having leads going into the third period consistently. and you're like, this is the game they turned it around. You line up that kick and you're on your ass like every single game except Saturday nights.
Yeah, except for Saturdays. Is this where, and I'm not saying this like, they need to bring in Clutterbuck from the MSG press box, but is this a kind of those moments, is that really where they need that momentum swing and that identity line back? I'm, again, not actually suggesting, because Martin is barely serviceable at this point.
No. Yes and no. What they do need is a high energy, lock it down line, which they don't have anymore. And the answer is not Clutterbuck because he's old. And I think part of the issues is we have this team of people over 30 years old, one of the like highest average ages in the league. And maybe that's part of the issue. And that's what's showing. Like they just are slowing down a lot of our players. And so that and it's, that's probably not the number one issue because they still are all, again, NHL athletes. These people are well conditioned, but
yeah, they're not like me. The minute I woke up at 34 last week, I was like, "Does my back hurt for no reason today?"
Yeah.
Is this like that's not what Kyle Palmieri is doing.
Yeah, they're all professional athletes, but still at the same time, it's like, are you guys gassed? Are you running out mentally? Like, is it just a mental issue? Like you can't stay focused for 3 periods? What's going on?
I think there's a little bit of a chemistry issue in the bottom 6 that's been going through a little bit of a blender. There's players in and out. We're going to talk a little bit about Engvall and playing with 11 forwards. They don't have the same. I'm going to use a very hockey term that I don't think actually means a whole lot, but the Fashings, the McLeans, Cizikas, certainly not Wallstrom, certainly not Engvall, but they just don't have the jam. Like I don't like that I even said that, but it's the only way I can describe what the identity line really was. And it was just that something that very reliable, no matter what, you can send this line out there. And like you said, they'll shut it down. They'll not only that, right? It's not even because I don't think they were particularly good in their own zone. It was actually very infuriating when they would be put out maybe a little too late in games by Waugh for a little bit, but certainly by Lane Lambert and certainly by Trotz. They'd be put out a little too late in a game and they get hemmed in their own zone. And it was just like somehow they figured it out, but it was never, you were always on the edge of your seat. It didn't feel comfortable, but a lot of times they were able to suppress the other team's offense simply by being in their zone and get that puck deep, and they were just hammering away at them.
Yeah, skate it in and hold it in the corners if you have to. Take the hits. They don't do it anymore.
They don't have that, like, for whatever reason, that chemistry just isn't there the same way. And maybe part of the issue is that Cizikas, McLean, Fashing, they're too similar. So I don't think they're out there together all that often, frankly, but at least 2 of them are. But that if they're a little too similar, the role of each of those, where Clutterbuck and Martin clearly had a thing. Zeke was the little engine that could out there, and it just worked. It was a rare, like, 4th line that could just swing the momentum of a game. We all know that. But with the current bottom 6, or even I don't even know what the 4th line is at this point, because things just keep changing. But it just doesn't have that connection the way that those 3 did, and I think that's a big part of why they can't hold leads. There's nothing that just kind of puts the momentum back in their corner.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's such a personnel issue. That's what it comes down to, and I guess jumping a little ahead in the show notes here, it comes down to the personnel issue, and as Waugh said, this is the team Lou gave him.
Yeah, and I do want to. I mean, we can jump to some of that. The Islanders Drama Club kind of came out in full force. This is something we really haven't seen. We haven't had an outspoken coach like Waugh before. Lamoriello was the opposite. He must have known what he was getting into with Waugh coming in. I imagine they even had a conversation, but I guess Wa does whatever he wants. I
Yeah.
think he doesn't really have a whole lot to lose. His stock as a coach isn't going up with this team, so something's got to change. And if he's just trying to put pressure in the right places, it seems, I don't know if that's working, but he's doing something. So I think particularly, there's you were texting earlier today, so we'll stay in the order that you had it, and I think the first up was Dobson.
Yeah. I mean, look at Dobson. Last year, he was 75-point D-man. He was our future perennial Norris contender. He made a lot of top 10 lists moving into this season, and he's just not there. And it goes down all the way. He's fallen to the point where he didn't play the last 6.5 minutes against the Sabres. And Wah basically was like, he had a turnover against the Capitals. We need to see, we can't be seeing that. He felt that everyone in front of him was playing better, so he hopes it's the last time he has to do that. But it's like, your star defenseman cannot be not playing the last 7 minutes of your game
In a contract year where he should be playing out of his mind way back. He should be on a 90-point pace. Like, just a ridiculous where his come down year is next year.
Yeah. And Wah mentioned a turnover in the Capitals game, but that's not the only game. He's doing it kind of frequently. It's kind of alarming. And a lot of times when you have a puck moving defenseman or a high point scoring defenseman, you take those defensive lapses because they're putting points on the board, and you usually pair them with a steady defender that's like Romanov, who's going to cover for those mistakes that they will make because they're joining the rush and creating offense. Problem is, he's not creating enough offense at this point to even warrant these defensive lapses he's having. So now he's kind of becoming detrimental in 2 points on the ice, where he's not getting the points that we need from him, but he's also not playing, but he's still making the errors that someone that should be getting those points is making. So it's a bad situation. And I'm not going to make a comparison here. It just got me thinking because they drafted him, what was he, 11th, and Wahlstrom was 12th, or vice versa?
Something like that.
Those are the two picks. I just don't remember which one came first. And it's rare that you get 2 picks in a row in the first round. And Wahlstrom is clearly not hitting. That experiment is done. He's just a body out there. He's not doing anything. And now we have Dobson, who is he's a career NHLer. This guy, I'm not gonna say his career's over after 25 games. I still think he's gonna be a great defenseman and turn out an asset for us. But in my doomsday thinking, I was looking at the 1999 NHL draft, and this is what I was telling you a little bit before we talked. The Islanders had 4 picks in a row that year, or not in a row, 4 picks in the first round. They had the 5th overall, the 8th overall, and then 2 later first round picks, and none of them hit. Your biggest hit was Tim Connolly. He was not good for the Islanders. He ended up playing all right, I think, on the Sabres, I want to say.
On the Sabres. I did just watch him in that Shoresy Sabres alumni game.
Okay.
Buron, Konopka, Connolly. I did say the wrong Gianta in a Bluesky post.
Yeah.
And somebody else.
Yes, you had Tim Connolly, Taylor Pyatt, which again he played almost 900 NHL games, but not the best.
He went to the Oilers.
Yeah, and then after that, it was Branislav Meze and Christian Kudrock, 2 players I literally do not remember. And that's 4 first-round picks you swung and missed on. And again, Dobson is not a swing and a miss. So I'm not really alluding to this being the same, but it's just kind of highlighting a theme that has been in the Islanders history, that they're not getting enough value out of their first-round picks. And I'm just getting nervous now because we hadn't picked first-rounders in a long time. But we're having Wahlstrom, who's now a dud, and Dobson is not our star this year. I'm hoping he comes into form. He could right the ship this year. It's early enough for him to right the ship, 25 games in. But it's just we need good first-round picks, and we've been giving them away for trades. Hopefully, we don't this year. And I don't know. They just made me nervous. And I was thinking of that. I was like, man, 2 picks in a row, and neither of them are playing good this year. What was that year that happened to the Islanders already? And it was.
It's I don't think it's doomsday. It's not. It's certainly not positive. So I'll start there. But it's the mindset that the team's putting its fans in. Right. It's
Yeah.
not. This isn't a normal
And I've
thing
been
that
Mr.
happens.
Positive every podcast we do.
And yeah, and you have been. But like you can only watch it. I don't know. Pick a movie. It's like The Day After Tomorrow, and I'm expecting a different ending. I don't remember what the actual.
How many times are you watching that movie, man? It's not even that good.
But it's not even that good. But I'm saying like there's a movie with a bad ending. It's like expecting something different to happen. And
I don't think you know how movies work. I've never once expected a movie to end differently than the first time I saw it. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I mean, so
maybe that's apt because I don't really expect the Islanders to hold the third period lead. So
right, but like you're like, okay, they gotta, and I think what's hard here is the switch, and you can be like, oh wow, okay, they won 3-0 against the Sabres. They shut them out. They locked it down. Can this be? I hate this shit. Can they use this to move forward? Can they build momentum? And I guess it's a fair question, but it's they've proven they can't. So
yeah,
until
exactly.
they prove otherwise, yes, I'm going to go into that next game expecting that. But in the moment, in a vacuum, you're like, okay, they're up. The next thought is definitely, okay, this third period is going to be miserable. I don't even want to watch it. Because I think if you had not watched the last 2 weeks, you could have just looked at the scores and said, okay, this is exactly what happened. Bad power play, bad end of the third period, bad penalties still from the same guys, so on and so forth. Dobson not doing his thing. So I understand getting into that mindset. I don't blame you for getting into that mindset. I think the power play not clicking and him not getting his cookies there is really hard. Because it's one thing. I think we spoke about this a while back. It's not that they're even, or maybe I tweeted about it or something. I don't like the Blueski name for a post, so I'm not going to say that. But
it's not called Blueski.
Blue sky, whatever. It's all one word. It's Blueski.
Blueski. That's what you call your friend.
I know. I think the issue isn't that they're allowing goals in the third period, right? It's they're allowing always more than one. It's not like they go in with a 1-goal lead and you're like, they just need to pad their stats. And like, yeah, of course you're going to get scored on in the third period. The other team's pushing. It's that they never can regain the lead, or they're up by 2 goals and they allow 3. Like that is the actual part of it that really, really gets me. And that's the bigger, again, it's not like it's 1-goal games. And then you lose in OT, but you're allowing 2, like you're losing the game. It's one thing to be like, wow, this team's winning games, but it doesn't look as good. Kind of the opposite of what you were saying. Like it's actually a worse picture than a good record would show, because they're winning games in OT, they're winning some in regulation, but it's tight. Like every game is tight. And that's what we said a couple years ago with Trotz, right? This isn't sustainable. Now it's kind of like it's shifted, whatever way you want to say, but it's shifted to the point where not only is it tight going into a third period because they're going in with 1-goal leads or whatever, then you're letting up 2. Like that's an actual collapse every single night for a different reason, but with the same result. And that's really what, and maybe that's just like an over explanation of what's happening. But that's what's really been getting me. It's one thing to let goals up. Wow, they're really letting the other team stay in the game. Like they really need to be able to, like the Islanders did against the Sabres, that 1 extra goal in the third period. Okay, you can breathe for a second, right? Like that's a different conversation to have if that was what was happening on a regular basis. and they win 3-0 against the Sabres. It's a completely different thing to be like, oh my God, they're up by 2 goals and they're going to allow 3. That's actually nuts. And then they're going to lose by 1 goal. So it's not even they keep letting up 1 or 2, but they score 1 in the third and they keep squeaking out these wins. I really wish this isn't sustainable. Like it's going to catch them and bite them in the ass. They're not even capable of that. So that's what kind of what's been on my mind.
But
lately.
and then
That's like a Dobson thing where like, dude, score on the power play. Like someone, it's your 5 best players. Do literally anything.
They're completely incapable. It's infuriating. Dobson has me a little worried, but I know tomorrow night the Islanders are going to go into the third period with a 2-1 or 3-1 lead, and I'm going to be thinking Canadians are a bad team. They could just they should be able to close this out, and then we'll be in overtime and thinking what happened.
Well, I think I said this to you. We've been on the show more than not this year. I'm pretty sure it was to you. Are the Islanders just not a good team? Like
yes, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I think,
but
we're going into these conversations like, I'm not like picking on you because I think the same thing, and I've heard other people say it. It's like, oh well, we should beat the St. Louis Blues or the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens or any of these teams. But like, I don't know. I don't know if we should. I don't know if they're actually better than these teams. The standings say otherwise.
The standings say otherwise, but it's like I say no, they're not a good team. But then you look at the stats, and if you like, and there's a lot of bad ones, but those first 2 periods, they're in the lead. They've blown the lead 9 times in the third period this season. It's like,
well, I think that's where I'm taking the word "should" out, right? Like, should they? Absolutely. Clearly, for 2 periods, a majority of the game, you don't get points for that. They're the better team.
Yeah, exactly. So then, are they a good team? Like, it's crazy. No, I always say, we always say no, they're not. But then it's like the first 2/3. Why can't they bring it to that last third of the game? It's nuts.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, you go into these games is like against the Capitals. Like, I don't know. Like, that's a game where they shouldn't win, right? Yeah. Like, even without Alex Ovechkin, like, this is a good team.
Capitals are a good team. Yeah.
A little bit of luck, a little bit of talent, all that kind of. You need everything. We've also seen them peter out like a zillion times in the first round. So don't get your hopes up to the no Capitals fans listening to this. Don't get your hopes up. But I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I think every game the Islanders are playing, I don't think this should happen. Like, it's very different. And if you win, they have 6 overtime losses. If you win 3 of those, you have the standings up. Where does 3 more points get them?
3 more points puts them in wild card conversation.
So, and like,
yeah, exactly. That's why it's infuriating to watch this team.
And I said that a couple of years ago on the show where it came down to if they had won 1 more game a month, they were in the playoffs. I think that was the last Barry Trotz season, like with the opening UBS, the long road trip. So I didn't want to hear any of that shit about, oh, it's a road. They're professionals. Yes, their COVID thing sucked and fine. You're talking about 8 more wins. That's 1 more a month. That's nothing. How many games do they play every month? Win 1 more than you did. That's not a monumental shift.
Yeah.
We're not asking them to, it's not 15. Right? That is a completely different story. You are talking about, in this case, in 3 more points just takes a lot of pressure off the rest of the schedule for December, where it is an easy schedule if you have a positive mindset of the Islanders and taking 2/3 of every single game, or rather 2/3 of the games they've played so far, and say, oh yeah, okay, they're better than most of those teams for 2 periods. They just need to close out 1/8 more of them, right? 3 out of 25. It's roughly that. They need 1 out of every 8 games. They need to just win, or get get that extra point, not the loser point. Get the extra point. It completely changes things because the East is, I don't know, it's kind of weird right now. Like, everyone's kind of got their own issues. like the Islanders do in some way, shape, or form. The Rangers in particular, their defense, the lack of defense, Shesterkin can't just hold it up the fort forever. They're collapsing a little bit. Their forwards aren't producing the same way, and whatever. I think it's a lot of teams have issues. The Boston Bruins finally got a little bit of a bump after, including the win against the Islanders, with Joe Sacco behind the bench, the little new coach bump. Like a lot of these teams just aren't. The Red Wings have I don't know, the combined ghosts of Tarasenko and Kane somehow.
The Red Wings, though,
things.
They're not a good team, and they're below the Islanders in the standings right now.
Right.
So
it's, I don't know. I think that's where it comes down to is I don't think we're not asking a lot. Again, 3 points, 3 more wins. In all that, and those are just the overtime ones. Just the games that they were able to hold off somehow in the third period and not lose in regulation.
3 more teams and wins, and you have to jump the Flyers, the Blue Jackets, the Sabres, and the Lightning. Only the Lightning deserves a kind of more respect out of those teams, right? So it's not super it's not teams that you have to really be oh man, they're always stringing it together, they always pull it out. Other than the Lightning, that's it.
All those teams except for Columbus is 8-3-1 in their last. I'm sorry.
Columbus is 6-3-1 their last
6-3-1. That's still good. I was looking at the home thing because my screen is small. The Islanders, they're kind of in line with all those teams around them by a win or so.
Well, that's the middle. That's what the middle of the league is. It's just a bunch of teams that are meh.
Yeah. Continuing, this is, I think, the juiciest part, or getting to the juiciest part of some of the drama was the Engvall situation. And I'll say this because I think you have some stuff to say here. I thought it was interesting that when Pajot was out, they sat Engvall. They, as in Wah, sat Engvall, and they had 7D and 11 forwards. So Wah thought with Pajot out, it was better to not have Engvall in the lineup at all and play with 11 forwards during a back-to-back than to have Engvall in the lineup. It was better to just say we're playing down a man essentially up front. That is crazy to me. After he scored a goal for 3 games in a row.
It wasn't right after that. He played, I think, at least 2 games after that, and
right. They must have been so bad in his eyes.
He's just a ghost out there. When we did our season opening recap of this roster, I forgot Engvall existed. This man is a ghost. He stinks. Even though he has he has his contract that I should never forget about because it's awful. But he is just a terrible, infuriating player. I cannot stand watching this guy play. He is my least favorite player on this team, and that's among a player. There's a decent amount of players I don't like on this team.
Well, there's a bunch of players that are like that. With Wahlstrom, McLean is not the same player as he was last year. He's not, at least doesn't have the same impact. He's not noticeable at all.
I guess
but
these
neither is
guys. Yeah,
and that's the problem with Engvall. You're competing with no one.
Yeah,
you're worse. If you're worse than Hudson Fasching, and Wahlstrom.
Yeah,
and that's your competition. That's what we said in the beginning of the season.
And Wah and the quotes that come out today is Wah tells him, "Hey, you have to go to the net and stay in front of the net," and then Wah says you have more skill than the guys that are playing above you, but you're just not using it. Just go to the net. And then Engvall's response to the media, not to Wah, he says to the media, but he goes, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what's wanted of me. I just got to keep going out there and working hard. And it's what do you mean you don't know what you want? Wah explicitly stated, go to the net.
And there's no way that conversation didn't happen. You don't get sat in that situation as a professional athlete, and that conversation didn't take place.
And your coach doesn't say that to the media after one time. That conversation has had to happen multiple times, right? Where the coach is basically, I'm out of ideas. I'm going to just point at how dumb you're being right now. Where you're
where do
I go?
Oh yeah, he's gonna drag him a little bit just to be
Yeah.
like, all right, if one-on-one in private isn't gonna work, but we're gonna do this publicly so that you're not just gonna get criticism for internally now.
Now, yeah, now
And
you're
as if
embarrassed.
yeah, as if that wasn't already the case, right? Like he
Yeah.
wasn't already just like, oh, if I was Patrick Waugh, I would say, we're not the only ones that know you're playing like shit, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is watching. Everyone knows you're going out there and figure skating. Like I don't know, you're just in an Islander jersey. And I think it's the on and off thing that really gets probably why that's confusing to most hockey fans that know who he is. And that was the criticism when he was in Toronto as well, is, he has those 3 games in a row where he's going to the net, he's stopping, he's um, contributing positively, and then just forgets. I'll never understand how. I mean, you could have a bad game or two. I don't even think that's it. It's it's like the Islanders winning 3-0. When the weird thing is that you played a solid 60 minutes, that's not
Yeah.
who you are, right? So scoring 3 games in a row isn't who you are. That was the exception, not the rule. And if Engvall isn't actually a good example of the Islanders for the season, right? Like they're the same. The storyline is the same. They play really well, and you're like, okay, there's something there, and then they disappear, and it's just the same thing. There's a word for it, I can't remember from English, but he's a personification of the Islanders, right? He's
Yeah.
living out who they really are. But like I said, that's not really who the team is, and that's not really who he is as a player. What you're actually seeing is the truth. Most of the time, what you're seeing is the truth.
The 24-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
There's nothing quite like the energy of a live hockey game, and this season, I'm gearing up to catch some live games thanks to Game Time. If you haven't used it, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It's perfect for finding the best seats at the best prices. They take out all the fluff, so you only see the deals that are actually worth your time. I've been checking out seats for the next time I'm on Long Island to catch the Islanders, and let me tell you, the super deals are unreal. Plus, you can see exactly what your view is before you buy. No surprises. With Game Time's all-in pricing, you get the total cost upfront, no hidden fees. And they've got you covered with the lowest price guarantee. If you find a better price, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code THPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time.
The other thing that Wah said, we can kind of decide if people are making more of this, and I don't think we're helping in any way if that's the case, but there was a longer quote, and Wah essentially said, this is the team that Lou gave me. And that includes someone like Engvall, where like, I don't know, I'm just going to play more defensemen because I'd rather do that and shelter them a little bit, which isn't a bad strategy, but I'd rather limit the amount of bad forwards in the game if I can help it, is essentially what is happening now.
And I do actually think like this people are blowing this quote out of proportion a little bit. But the reason it's getting blown out of proportion is because the fans see it. They don't like the team Lou built. So when someone kind of says a comment that can be construed in any way you want, they're going to jump on it. And I think it's just this is a bad team. Lou built a team with many weaknesses, and Wah is trying his best. And I really do think Wah is a good coach. I think the positives we've seen from the Islanders this season, like their increased shot volume and all that, are good things that Wah has implemented. He still can't make up for the lack of talent, and that's on Lou. And I don't really think that's what he's saying. I think he's just saying, like, this is the team we have. This is what Lou's put together. My job is to work within those bounds. Oh, that's all. That's all he's saying. He's not being like if we were in first place, he would also say, "This is the team Lou gave me. This is the team Lou gave me." But you'd say with like 2 thumbs up and a big smile. Like right now, he's not saying it with like happy, but like he's just saying, "This is the team I have, and I'm going to work with it." There's no magical fixes, I think is more what he's trying to say. Like, we have to work through this. But again, we're jumping on it because Lou gave him a very flawed team that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I think because now you're in year 3 and coach 3 of largely the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was maybe a little bit different with Trotz, but it absolutely happened for a season and a half under Lambert. An inability to score, really lack of cohesion, really not having a game plan. So some of that's on the coach. But there's an execution thing where that mental block at the end of the third period to be able to lock it down. Like you said, they're doing that in other periods. There's shot suppression. There's more shots. I don't know that it's quality, but there's more shots at times. I think they were outshot for the first time in a while against the Sabres, if I'm not mistaken. Or typically they're on.
Yeah, that's probably score effects though in the Sabres game. You're up to 2-3 nothing.
Yeah. And that and all that's fine. But I think this is where I want to get into some of the stats that we kind of alluded to earlier. That and I think everyone knows what these are, but in 20 out of 25 games, they've entered the third period tied over the lead. They're minus 21 following the Sabres game in third periods and overtime. So it's just kind of hammering that down.
If you're in the game that much in the third period, 20 of your 25 games, you're in it. You have a realistic stake in those 2 points. If you're tied or leading going into the third, that's 20 minutes of hockey you have to play. And if you're tied, right, those are going to be, you're not going to win every game you're tied going to the third, whatever. But those leads, like, you can't blow them.
Yeah.
They've blown a third period lead 9 times. So 9 of those 20 games, so almost half of those 20 games where they entered with a tie or a lead, they've been winning. They're in the lead, and they blew it. Those are the points that they have put up on the board, that they have left on the board and are knocking them out of a playoff spot, and the reason why they're at the bottom of the standing instead of the middle or upper middle.
Yeah. That was kind of where I was going with that. So I appreciate that. Yeah. No. It's totally fine because there's only so much you could say. Like we've managed just to squeeze out whatever it is, 40 minutes of this, but with the same thing, and you're trying to pick out these different problems, and I guess it would be different if it was, a normal loss or something, but it's just not. Like there's always a qualifier. There's always just something that of course the team is going to say, but you can at least point to be like, someone's stick blew up or the refs were calling it tight, but at the same time, they're just not helping themselves get into that, because I think they should be up probably even more going into third periods. And what I mean is not more often, but by more goals. So that would make the collapses much, much worse if they still continued that. But the stat that really sticks out is the 5.4% in the 16 losses this season. The power play is 2 for 37. If you score even just a few more goals on the power play and you're up by 3 instead of 2, that's the conversation we're having earlier. Okay, you're still allowing goals in the third period. This isn't great. It's not sustainable. Eventually, the power play is going to cool off, or something's going to happen, a bad bounce, a penalty, and you're going to get screwed late in the game. But for now, at least you're winning. Like, oh, you're up 2-0 and losing 3-2. And if the power play was going, maybe you're up 3-0 and you win 3-2, or something, right? You're in the game a little bit longer than you would have been. You're not even giving. There's no part of their game that's even giving them a chance, other than Sorokin.
Yeah, it's actually what it is. It's a decent 5-on-5 team being torpedoed by a dog shit power play.
Yeah, penalties and the PK is
the PK is also at the bottom there. Yeah, it's special teams, and you live and die by special teams in the NHL. Like, especially in the regular season.
Yeah, and that doesn't bode well for the playoffs, right? It's a different season, and everyone loves to say that. But
there's still power plays and penalty kills, and you gotta be successful on them.
Yeah, and like what are you gonna grip your stick looser in the playoffs?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not less pressure. Then you really have to perform. Like, everything's tight. Like you said, you really live and die by all of that. So you have to be on it. And I was thinking about this. I'd love to be the optimist and be like, oh, well, what have you done for me lately? Okay, they beat the Sabres 3-0. First of all, they should beat the Sabres. On paper, they're a better team. I don't even know who their goalie is. Oh, it was Reimer, that idiot. Like, it's like he's so beyond a regular, like a starting NHL goalie that you should have been able to pick 3 goals out easy in that game. If I was, betting with DraftKings using the promo code THPN, I would have done that, but actually couldn't watch the game. Oh no, I did watch the game on Saturday. There was another game I couldn't watch because Central New York and MSG just don't mix. Too many games were on earlier in the week. I think that was the Capitals game. Anyway, I'd love to be like, oh, what have you done for me lately? They played a good game, but yeah, like we were saying, the exception is that they won 3-0. That you need to do some stuff on a regular basis before we jump in with some optimism the rest of the way here. Anything on those stats? Any last thoughts there?
No, I think we cut. It's just that they need those extra points. Give me a power play goal in each game. If your power play is getting us, right. Get me a goal. Get me a power play goal, and we're not even having an angry conversation right now. We're having a conversation where we're right in it. Like, we got the Canadians coming up, easy 2 points. Let's move on. Players aren't supposed to look ahead in the schedule. They're supposed to look to the next game. And fans, we're the ones who can start counting games ahead. And right now with the Islanders, you cannot do that.
So what's a good power play percentage? Like 18%, 20%? Like, not good, but okay.
Mediocre, yeah. Give me.
We're talking 10%. Double it. 4 goals, 2 more goals, or 3 more goals overall out of 37, right? In those losses may have made them not losses, or at least an overtime loss, right? I think some of those are overtime, but so I'm not having every single one up there, and we're not going to do the math live here, but you're talking again, that those are your 3 more points. That's all that we're talking about, is 3 more points, getting them in and around that wild card conversation where they're very much alive right now, which is less to do with what the Islanders are doing and what the rest of the conference isn't doing. But
the Islanders are 13% right now on the power play. If they were up, I'd say 20% would be middle of the league. So if you're scoring a goal every 1 in 5 power play, the Islanders are in an okay spot in the standings. Instead, they're scoring 1 every 9 power plays. So it's
yeah, and it's a huge jump, right? Something like Duclair coming back or Barzal coming back, which I don't believe anyone's skating with the team, I think, and probably already know this. Essentially on a game day, I'm sure there's been an update. I believe Pellick and Duclair are skating on their own. I have not seen anything about Barzal. I don't know if you have.
He's not even skating yet, by all accounts that I've read.
So, yeah, not great. But something like that could give them the boost. It's just they're like staying alive long enough for the next week to be the make or break week. And it's really you can't be a fan like that for 82 games, and that was my frustration all of last year too.
Yeah, and the quick mention of Barzal there, I complained about this a couple weeks back when Romanov was like supposed to be out for one game, if anything, and he was out for like 3, and then he was out for another like 8. Why do the Islanders never have their players come back early? I think Barzal's been out for at least 4 weeks at this point, right? And he's not even skating. They told us 4 to 6 weeks. He's going to be out longer than 6 weeks. Why is our team never get their players back early? Ovechkin broke his leg, and he's like walking around, skipping, like having fun. And Barzal, we haven't seen him or heard from him.
Yeah, I'm not.
Our stars never come back early. Everyone else's stars come back super quick. Give him the steroids that they're all taking.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. It's funny because it's clearly not a time. It's not, post trade deadline where you're like, all right, we got to get this guy back. And that happened, a number of years ago with Barzal when Horvat first got here. And then Barzal came back as quickly as he could for the playoffs, and he was just not the same. Came back from an injury. I don't remember what it was. Horvat and Sorokin got the Islanders into the playoffs somehow with Lambert, and he just was not the same player he was during the season, and especially not that brief. Was it like 5 or 6 games with Horvat and Barzal playing together? They certainly were not the same in the playoffs. So
yeah, we don't want to rush our players back. It's just
something.
I feel like I never hear about like the Islanders like, oh yeah, he's back and skating right on target. It's always, hey, they told us 4 to 6 weeks, and like we're at the 4-week mark now, and maybe I'm off, and maybe it's only been 3 weeks or something. I get lost in all the shuffle, but it just feels like he's been out for a while, and I haven't heard any news of him even skating now. It's like, come on.
Yeah, it feels like the entire season at this point. I agree. I don't really know how long it's been. It feels like it's been at least a month. So we're because they happened like a week apart. So Duclair should be back about a week before, maybe 10 days before Barzal.
He's played 10 games this season, so he's missed the last 15. Like, it's a big chunk.
It's a big chunk. And we're, you can think what you will about Thanksgiving and American Thanksgiving and the standings, but they're very much in it. They're, like I said, every week is the make or break week, and somehow the teams around them are playing worse or have the same inconsistent play that the Islanders do, and it's just kind of extending the life of a very middling season.
So his last
continuing the same shit.
His last game was October 30th, so it's like it's 4 weeks. He's been out for a month. He should be at least skating if he wants to hit that 6-week timeline, right? And it's like, I don't know, just frustrating.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder what happens, and this is where clearly not someone that understands any of this. He could be skating somewhere that no one knows. I don't think he's, and he could have had a setback.
That's.
I don't think we know what the injury was.
We don't know anything because Lou refuses to tell us anything.
Yeah. To that point.
Yeah, we beat that horse. We beat that horse dead for a while now. So
I think as we've tried to do, and we're going to do something at the end of the show that's a little positive as well. I think beyond individual games and beyond like the larger trends that are frustrating, I think something that's been good is Simon Holmstrom was a little bit of a savior. Engvall had that for a minute, although the Islanders weren't winning a ton of games with him doing that. But at least Holmstrom back-to-back 2-goal games. So I think that's that's good.
Yeah, and he's practicing. They're keeping him up on that first line. Earlier I complained about our first round picks not hitting and stuff like that. If he's always been a big question mark, right? Can he like stick in the middle six? And right now he's on the top line playing really well. So let's see if he can keep it up.
Like you said, Lee, Nelson, Sibukov's kind of cooled off a little bit. I'm sure he's racking up some assists, but he loves playing against the Sabres. I thought he looked really good the other night there. He gets some kind of confidence playing against them. In that first game, he had a really great assist and a really great goal earlier in the season in their game in Buffalo. And just watching him the other night, there's something. It's very strange. I guess some teams just
There's
like
always
Alex Lyon against the Islanders, just having a game, and you see that other jersey and you just play better for some reason. So Sorokin's also playing well. Palmieri, Nelson still scoring goals, like we said earlier. So there's, Isaiah George, I think, is cooled off. I think he still looks really good. He's still young and making mistakes.
Yeah, of course.
But for the most part, the players that were playing well continue to. The ones that are ghosts are very much so. And
Horvat's been kind of a ghost. He hasn't really scored enough at all.
He is noticeable out there. Like, he's getting his chances.
Yeah, I think it was a 1 goal in 8 games. Yeah, like an 8-game goalless streak, drought, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, and I meant to actually write that down because I heard that on a broadcast recently, and he hasn't scored in a while, and
like he's on this team to score goals. That's why we have him. He was our goal scorer, right? So he's not scoring goals right now. That's part of the problem. He's kind of the power play problem. Yeah,
exactly. Him on the not scoring the power play is an enormous issue, and it's weird because their power play, even with Barzal, has never been really good. It should be so much better. They've always had 5 really talented players out there at once, in whatever iteration over the last 5 or 6 years, and it just isn't good on a consistent basis. It's just never really had that potency, even as they've gotten better on paper. Like I don't know. I guess it's hard to say because they did not play together very long, but that power play earlier in the season, it wasn't great.
They just don't make quick enough decisions. It's
100%.
It's just decision making, and in the NHL, like I heard this like years ago, and I just ran with it, where it was like, the skill difference between AHL players and NHL players actually isn't that much. Like those players they all have very high skill. It's the decision making where like it's that much better in the NHL. And I kind of heard that once and just ran with it. And I feel like I see that on the power play where it's just like this team just doesn't make decisions quick enough. They just don't shoot fast enough when they get the puck, or they don't pass it quick enough to keep the goalie moving side to side. It's just
100%. It's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of everything's a little bit cleaner at the higher level.
Yeah.
So when you go watch, I went to a D3 game not too long ago.
I mean, that's levels below.
It's levels below, but like you watch it and you're like, there's a certain aspect you're like, wow, they're really good. And then you think about them in comparison to D1 or certain levels of junior or whatever, or the AHL. And because I go to significantly more minor AHL games than NHL games in a season. It's the decision making, but it's just how clean everything is. And the Islanders are just not at that level. Not everything's clean, and when they are able to make decisions quick, it's not clean, and they don't make them quick enough to begin with on a regular basis. So you're kind of just working against yourself by not having that ability. So I that alone would help Horvat's point totals. He is getting his chances, man. He's so quick. He has a real nose for an ability to know where to pick his spots. I feel like he's on a really good borderline breakaway once a game. He has a real knack for that. He's just not been able to finish lately, so it's been hard to watch. And obviously that would have helped the Islanders at literally any point. And we'll go back to 3 different games. Could have just made a huge difference, but I don't know. I guess we can keep hoping that things turn around, but They have not shown that. We already talked about, we the invisible players. So I think, looking ahead, it's a little early for this, but I think it's a good conversation. And you were doing some napkin math before on the playoff pace the Islanders would need to play. And we kind of picked the number of 95 points, and it's usually in and around there. Although there was a season or a bunch of seasons in a row where it was like 100. It hasn't been that for some time.
Yeah.
So we picked 95.
Yeah, and so over this last month, without to put this into like context, right? This last month, without Barzal, Duclair, Pelech, and then some other players have been in and out, like Romanov, based on injury. They went 6-5-4. So that's 16 out of 30 points, which is just over 50% of the available points. If they continued that pace for the rest of the season, that's only an 85-point pace. They're not going to make it. So you need to find 10 more points to hit 95 from where they are now.
And that's 5 wins.
Yeah.
Like, again, we're talking on like the margins here.
It's 5 wins, but you need to take them from the teams that you're battling against. So but so that
can't
those
lose
5
to the Capitals, can't lose to the Flyers, can't
Flyers, Sabres, like all those teams you can't lose to. So we need to get 10 more points, or that's like a 6-22 pace, 62% point percentage. If you look at the standings, crap, I took them down. Let me get the standings back up, because basically they need to play at just a 62% point percentage, which that's pretty high. Let's see who's at that right now. Just to give you a picture of the kind of pace they need to play at. The Florida Panthers are at, and the LA Kings at 14-8-3 or 15-9-1. Those teams are playing at 0.62, and that's what the Islanders need to do the rest of the way. So can Barzal, Duclair, and Pelech bring them to that pace to get them the 95 points they need? It's a tall order, so it's doable, but they need to start winning those winnable games. They cannot lose any more games to the Blue Jackets. They have to beat the Flyers. They have to beat games against the Lightnings and the Sabres. Those games they can't lose. It's early, and we're already looking at must-win games, because otherwise they're not making the playoffs.
Yes, it's early, but they've kind of put themselves in this position.
They dug the hole, so now they have to climb out of it, and we have to hope that Barzal, Duke, and Pelech are the answer. And we need them back sooner rather than later. 6-5-4 without 2 of your first liners and one of your top D-men. 6-5-4 is not the worst. But it's not the worst. But again, we talked about it on paper. Okay, 6-5-4. You treaded water without your best players, but then it's oh wait, no, you blew a bunch of leads and were miserable to watch. So we don't need to. We had that conversation for 20 minutes. We don't need to rehash. I'm just saying. It just brings us full circle back to that point.
It's also a storyline that you, or a narrative that's told when you're the 9th place team and you miss the playoffs. Well, we had injuries and this, that's just what you say at that point. So it's really hard to know your future. Oh, well, we treaded water and it was this excuse and that qualifier. That's kind of, I mean, if the season ended today, that it would be perfectly within the team's right to be well, we had our 2 of our best players around.
So they need a win streak, and they need it soon.
Yeah. Like you've been saying, there's an opportunity coming up. There are teams that they have a better opportunity to beat, or a better chance to beat. They just need to actually keep it together. They need to get over whatever that mental block is and get the yips out of their system. I don't know what they need to burn in a basement. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name. Ted Lasso. I don't know what they need to exercise, some demon to kind of move on from this. But
and look at their so before we speak next, I don't know if I'm on the next podcast, but the Canadiens tomorrow, you should beat them. The Kraken, not a great team, very winnable. The Hurricanes, all right, that might be a schedule loss, but it's a Saturday. Saturday's our night.
And their goalies have been terrible.
Yes, their goalies have been bad. You got the Senators, another team that's really underperforming expectations. Every year they're supposed to be knocking on playoffs door, and they're always at the bottom. And then you got the Kings, who are, or we'll probably talk before then, but the Kings and the Blackhawks after that. So, again, the schedule is serving them up potential, these are win streak pockets that you need to start putting together.
Yeah, lose in overtime to the Kings in a good game, right? Like push them. You come back in a game, or it's back and forth,
or beat a good team, beat the Canes. I don't care, even if they're
or
going to bed. Yeah, beat a good team for once. We
do
always
that too.
Even when the Islanders were decent, we always a couple of years back, those conference final teams and stuff. We always played down to the bad teams. How about have a good team play down to us?
That's right. Yes, pull them down to our level, and beat them when they're not paying attention.
Yeah, you're in the mud with us.
Yeah, they need a Freaky Friday situation where they need to kind of put this on another team for a little bit. You wanted to end the show with something that, it's the holidays, it was Thanksgiving, so something that and this could be a joke or whatever. I know we were doing that off the air. Something you're thankful for the Islanders this year.
Honestly, I'm thankful for Patrick Waugh. I think he's a good coach. He makes it interesting to, at least, even in a loss, when you're frustrated and don't want to look at this team, he at least gives you an interesting press conference after. I'm happy that Lee is having a decent season, so I'm pretty thankful for that. And I think something that all of us Islander fans, or not all, but many Islander fans, this is my third and unrelated thing, but a lot of us watch the season, I think, in two ways. We watch the Islanders, and we hope for them to win, and we keep an eye on them and how they're doing. But given that we're the little brother team, we always have our eyes on the Rangers, right? I always do, and it stinks because I like it when I don't have to care about them so much. But here we are. I'm keeping my eye on those Rangers, and it's nice to see that they're kind of imploding right now as well. And I'm thankful for that. And they're losing 5-1 to the Devils as we record. So I don't know. It stinks that we have to have a second thing to root for besides just rooting for the Islanders to be winning. When they're not winning, you're like, crap. I know too many Ranger fans. They can't be happy either. And it's yes, they're not playing well. They're not happy either. Great. So I'm thankful for that right now.
I do really like that. I am thankful for that as well. The Rangers losing always feels good. Although against the Devils, it's not the end of the world. But
yeah, but you always root for anyone's playing the Rangers. You almost always, unless that's playoff implications for the Islanders, you always root for the team.
Yeah,
that's playing the Rangers.
I think I'm going to lump a bunch of things together. I think I'm thankful for Sorokin's health. He's back. It looks good. That's great. I think for me, I'm happy about some of the unexpected storylines for the Islanders that we've kind of been talking about so far this season. So Isaiah George, Sipolkov. For a change, the Islanders have had some surprises, some good surprises, and just had guys hit that weren't supposed to, or someone just signed with us in Sipolkov that came from the KHL and is playing pretty well. I mean, he's had his moments where he kind of looks like he's about to pop off, but a lot of penalties, and I think, getting used to the NHL ice. He's still 26 or 7 or something. So, in getting to or in his prime, but he hasn't played in the NHL, so give him a little slack there. So I think things like that, Lee's resurgence, I think, is really great. So some of these little surprises that, while Duclair and Barzal are out, have kind of buoyed the Islanders, and that hopefully they can continue those storylines and provide that secondary boost that the Islanders have really never had. They've always had this, and this has largely been the result in one way or another, where they're kind of a middling team. They were top of the middling teams for some time, but now with a lot of injuries and continuing different other issues, those players are the only thing they've got. So it'll be really nice, hopefully, when everyone's back and maybe they can create some momentum. But I'm thankful that there's at least the potential for there to be kind of these secondary players that can just give the Islanders that extra push that they've needed for a lot of seasons. Thanks for bringing that up. That was, I think, a better way to end the episode than what we could have, and kind of just rehashing the same thing we've rehashed for however many episodes we've done together, 4 or 5. I'm glad we didn't have to do that. But closing thoughts before we do move on. Again, not avoiding rehashing things.
Just win tomorrow and let me go into the third period with the lead tomorrow, and I'm kicking the football. I'm hitting it. Charlie Brown is kicking this football. We're going in with the lead, and we're winning tomorrow.
All right. I can't think of a better
Straight
way
to the goalpost.
Straight to the goalpost, baby. 3-0 win. That'd be great. 2 in a row. They haven't won 2 games in a row very many times this season, maybe once or twice. So it'd be great. Another 3-0 win. Get Sorokin some momentum too. I think that'd be really helpful. But I'm with you on that. Kick the football. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Blue Sky, not Blue Ski, and YouTube at Nassman Hockey. You can also subscribe to NHP the blog on Patreon. It's free. Link in the description. And until next time, let's go on.